When I was 4, we were living in New Jersey. My parents, I was born in North Carolina. My parents moved to New Jersey. They were maids, and my father met this very successful real estate guy who was really turned on by my dad, because my father he thought he was brilliant. And he said, I'm gonna teach this black man how to sell real estate. And his name was Dillon Rent, something like that. He lived on Long Island, and so my mother and father were living in East Orange, and then they moved to Washington Heights so they can travel and be maids for this very successful guy. And he was going to teach my father how to do real estate, how to become successful. My father meets Malcolm X on the streets of New York City, right when Malcolm X was kicked out of the Nation of Islam, and he invites my father to join this new organization called the Afro-American Unity Organization. His attitude, I guess maybe answering some of his whys, began to transfigure his life. And he began to have a new message. Instead of calling a white man a blue-eyed devil, he had a new message. He said, this is, and the night he was murdered, he was going to share the speech. I was there till I was 2 years old. I was in the Audubon Ballroom with my little sister, who was a newborn baby named Sanji. We were sitting on my mother's lap, and Malcolm X's speech was going to go like this. There's a reason why all of us are here in this room. Doesn't matter whether you're red, yellow, white, or black. It's time for all of us to come together. You see, you never read about that in your history books, because he never gave that message. Because right before he gave that message, he was murdered. He was assassinated. But he shared that message with my father and all of his individual members of the Afro-American Unity Organization the night before. So that's why I know the story, because that story was handed down to me. And that night the FBI comes to my father and said, listen, Cecil, we know you haven't done anything wrong, but you got to leave New York City right now. If you don't leave, you're going to be investigated. There's no telling what's going to happen to you or your family. So that same hour, my father and my mother, they get into a car and drive straight down to Greensboro, North Carolina. And that's why I began to grow up. We moved into these projects because we didn't have anything. And my parents lived there for about 11 months. My father was fortunate to get a job on the railroad. They saved up enough money in the next 2 years and moved into an all-white neighborhood. This little bitty house in a community called Woodmere Park. All-white neighborhood. We were the only chocolate chip up in there. It's like 1968, something like that. And I'm 4 years old now, and every day I would go outside and play with my best friend. My best friend was a little 4-year-old vanilla girl. And she would have her baby dolls, and I have my dump trucks and fire trucks, and one day, I took a baby doll from her. I'm like, I got your baby doll, You can, just like little kids play, and she goes, give my baby doll. She starts crying. Her mother comes outside, she goes, boy, you go home and don't you ever come over my house. You hear me, boy? So I was like, why? I said, because you're black. I don't want no black boy over my house playing with my daughter. So, boy, you go home and don't you ever come over my house. Can you hear me, boy? I was like, well, I'm black and I'm beautiful. That's what all the black people were saying back in those days, in terms of identity. If somebody says, who are you? Like I say, I ask people all the time, who are you? People take shortcuts and they say, I'm black, I'm white, all kind of things. And I believe they're all shortcuts. They're all human constructs that we make up and we live by. I ran home crying, upset, not because that woman said I was black, because that wasn't my identity. What was in my heart at 4 years old was nothing but love. It came from my parents and people around me. I didn't look at myself like that. I wasn't crying because she said I was black. Again, we make decisions based on how we feel, don't we? Somebody look at you the wrong way, somebody say something not going on there, then we start making choices based on those things. My choice to cry wasn't based on that. I was crying because I couldn't play with my best friend anymore. And I broke through the house. I let everybody know how I felt. We know how we grown people, we just hold stuff in. I let everybody know how I was feeling. My mother, she was ironing clothes, and the number one rule in the house was you don't wake up. My dad was on the couch sleep because he worked that night in the railroad. The number one rule in the house was you don't wake up this big old giant man. I didn't care about no house rules. I let it out. My father wakes up, what's wrong with you, boy? And I told my daddy what happened outside. So my father said, get over here right now. I'm going to tell you a few facts about life. So I go to my daddy. He says, my father's like 6'4", this big old strapping, strong man. He goes, let me tell you something, son. All the white man wants to do is have you in the cotton fields. He just wants you to be a slave, living in a ghetto, being poor, being on drugs, having babies, not being the daddy, and not prospering in this great country called America like he does. Do you understand what I'm telling you, son? Now, my dad was one of those men. He wasn't one of those dads that'll tell you something, you better not say nothing back. You just better just do what he say or hear what he said. He always wanted me to, my father was like, listen, you're not born to win, you're not born to lose, you're born to choose. So no matter what goes in your life, you have a choice. So he was saying, what's your choice, son? No matter what's going on right now, I'm your daddy, I'm in your face, what's your choice? So I looked at my father, I was like, yes, sir, daddy. I understand what you're telling me. What you're telling me is that black people and white people hate each other, and they hate each other because they're afraid of each other. But if they get to know each other and become friends, then they can love one another. Isn't that right, daddy? And my mother, she drops the iron and she starts crying. Oh, that's right, puppy, 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 puppy. That's right, honey. You tell that big old man. That's right, puppy. That's right, honey, puppy, puppy. And my father falls to his knees and looks his 4-year-old son in the face and goes, son, you're right. You just helped me to remember what I forgot. So the choice that came out of the heart of a 4-year-old kid changed the life of 2 grown people in that moment. And my parents, they shared this story that their lives changed that day. What was in my heart? Because whatever's in your heart, whatever's in your mind, that's how you're going to choose. No matter what playing field you're on in the NFL, selling real estate in this time, in 2022, going to 23, no matter how the market is, no matter what's going on, what's in your heart? That's what's going to come out. Who are you, really?